Hello, Internet. This is Sophia, the Red Angel. I am an atheist. Hello, Internet. This is Sophia, the Red Angel. I am a Jew. Some of you might be thinking that there is a bit of a contradiction here, but an understanding of the intricacies of Jewish identity would make it perfectly clear that there is really no contradiction here at all. Some people might even be offended if someone identifies themselves as Jewish but does not adhere to traditional Jewish religion, whether it be because they are non-religious or even adhering to a non-Jewish religion. Do they have the right to take offense? Well, I would be very hesitant to tell someone that they do not have the right to feel any specific way. But would reason be on the side of their offense? No, unless the person presenting to be Jewish specifically claims their religion to be Jewish, a caveat that I will discuss more later in this presentation. There is no rational reason to be offended at someone for identifying as Jewish without practicing or believing in traditional Jewish religion. Certainly no grounds to demand or expect that they stop doing so to cater to your offense. No matter how strong you feel that religion is the only valid source of Jewish identity, the facts are simply not on your side if you hold that position. In this presentation, I will explain why. Before I go on, I should let you know, this video is a remake and update of a video that I did a few years back on a now defunct channel that I used to run. I am doing this remake partly because when I tell people to see my video on this topic, I would rather point to a video on this channel than one on a channel that I no longer update. And partly because I genuinely do think that I can produce this video better now than I was able to a few years ago when I made the previous video on this topic. But back to what I was saying. The first thing that I want to bring up is the matter of genetic testing. If Jewish identity were simply a matter of religion, you would expect that it behave as other religions in this regard. But does it? I do not know of any genetic test that you can take that can confirm that you have Christian ancestry, or Muslim ancestry, or Buddhist ancestry. You can take a genetic test and confirm Jewish ancestry, though. Something that is an ethnic identity behaves like that. Something that is just a religion does not. Does this mean that no actual Jewish religion exists? No, not by a long shot. But it does mean that there also exists an ethnic aspect too that persists regardless of one's religious beliefs or lack thereof. It is also an undeniable reality that there are many aspects of Jewish culture which are not part of Jewish religion and which are held by many people who are not into Jewish religion itself per se. And though many of these aspects of Jewish culture might indeed be somehow connected to and related to Jewish religion, they are in no way inseparable from it. Also, even if you are talking about Jewish religion specifically, that might not be as specific as you think. Because the truth is, there are a number of religions which have valid claim to be seen as traditional religions of the Jewish people. When you refer to a Jewish religion, i.e., Judaism, most likely you are referring to Rabbinic Judaism, which has its roots among the Pharisees of the late Second Temple era, but which truly congealed a bit later, after the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. It is by far the most common among the traditional Jewish religions. Since the late 19th century, it has diversified into a number of movements. Most notable among these movements are the Orthodox movement, the Masorti, also known as Conservative movement, and the Reform movement, but there are several other smaller movements as well. These movements have their differences, but they are all outgrowths of Rabbinic Judaism. But then there is Karaite Judaism or Karaitism, and though there are some Karaite groups that do not identify themselves as Jews and tend not to be sociologically treated as Jews, there are other Karaite groups that are indeed Jewish by both of these standards. And what is more, there is a genetic case to argue that Karaites as a whole are indeed descended from first-century Jews, just as most communities of Rabbinic Jews are. Therefore, without a doubt, Karaitism should also be viewed as one of the religions of the Jewish people, i.e., also a Judaism. And we have not yet begun discussing the matter of polytheistic Judaism, also known as judeo-paganism. A lot of you, of course, might be taken aback by the mention of polytheistic Judaism. I mean, you might wonder, wasn't introducing monotheism to the world Judaism's big contribution? Actually, no, it is not. Monotheism is actually thought to originate in Persia in the form of Zoroastrianism. Early Israelites were more likely polytheistic, and later they became monotheistic. It is possible that the main power flipped over to the monotheists at about the time that the Second Temple was built in Jerusalem, given that at the time Israel was under Zoroastrian Persian rulers who would be more disposed to grant permission to rebuild the temple to their fellow monotheists than to the more, at the time, traditional polytheists. But even in the Bible that they edited, some signs of old polytheism still remain. Take, for example, this passage from the book of Numbers. "And the Lord said unto Moses, Make thee a fiery serpent, and set it upon a standard. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten, when he seeth it, shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass, and set it upon the standard. And it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he looked unto the serpent of brass, he lived." Numbers chapter 21, verses 8 through 9, from the 1895 Revised Version. Now the official story from the Book of Kings is that the brass serpent never was intended to be a representation of a polytheistic deity, and when people later on started to treat it as such, it had to be destroyed. However, that explanation, quite frankly, seems rather fishy and not very likely. It is far more likely that it from the get-go was meant as a representation of a polytheistic deity. I would guess that the particular polytheistic deity would most likely have been Asclepius, who was the god of medicine in Phoenician religion and was later on adopted for the same purpose in Greek religion. Can you guess what his symbol was? It was a snake on a staff. I mean, look at the standard symbol of the medical profession today. That is Asclepius's staff. So when the mosaic bronze serpent was destroyed later on, it probably was not because people had suddenly started to treat it as a polytheistic symbol, but more likely that polytheism was no longer considered to be okay. But for the leaders of the Second Temple, it was not enough to squash polytheism. It seems that they also wanted to rewrite history to make it sound like it had never been deemed okay. Of course, it is true that the ancient polytheistic religion of the Jewish people did get wiped out. Today, polytheistic Judaism only exists as a reconstructed religion, formed from what few breadcrumbs can be gleaned from the Bible, supplemented with what is known about Canaanite religion, which is the ancient religion most closely related to early Judaism, and a bit of modern neo-paganism mixed in there as well. So why should this modern reconstruction be counted among the religions traditionally indigenous to the Jewish people? To answer that, let us bear in mind a few things about the people who follow that path. These are people who are not ready to go past the belief in the supernatural that is inherent to all theism, but who are ready and needing to grow past the extremely totalitarian version inherent to monotheism. There are plenty of pagan religions already around that they could turn to for this purpose, many of which would be happy to have them. However, instead they tried to find this from within their Jewish heritage. For this reason, I think that it is definitely fair to include polytheistic Judaism among the list of religions that are truly of the Jewish people, i.e., a Judaism. Now, as I list religions that are indigenous to the Jewish people, some might take issue with me not mentioning Christianity. They might wonder, did I simply forget it? Was my list so long that I simply could not mention everything, and for that reason omitted Christianity? My answer is no and no. Christianity is not one of the religions indigenous to the Jewish people. Christianity probably started out as a Jewish sect. However, by the time it assumed any form at all recognizable today as Christianity, it had been for some time under the control of non-Jews. After all, the Council of Nicaea that really codified it was not a Jewish council, but a Roman one. And the religion that they approved was almost certainly radically different from the original form of Christianity that was Jewish. That is not to say that there are no Christians who legitimately are Jews, because they could still be ethnically Jewish and even be culturally Jewish. For a period of time in my life, I embraced Christianity and was therefore in that category myself. But though they may be legitimately Jews, they are not of Jewish religion. The only ones I know of who would even attempt to pass off their religion as itself being Jewish are those of a movement that I gradually came, in my Christian days, to seeing them as being just as cringy as I see them now. I'm referring to the Messianic movement. This is a movement which is generally regarded as very offensive by Jews, and with good reason. That reason is that the way that they organize their ministries and the way they organize their actions in general does not tend to send the message that their Jewish self-identification is for the purpose of pride in their heritage, celebrating part of who they are, but rather as a method of trying to coax Jews into converting to their religion, a religion which, no matter what they say, is not indigenous to the Jewish people. Now, it is often claimed that the Messianic movement follows Jewish ritual. However, I will tell you the truth. I once visited one of their synagogues, and from what I saw, it is far more accurate to call it an insulting caricature of Jewish ritual. At any rate, while some people in the Messianic movement are indeed ethnically Jewish, their religion itself is not indigenous to the Jewish people, and therefore is not really a Judaism. And while there is no rational basis of offense if someone who happens to be Christian identifies as Jewish for ethno-cultural reasons, one is very justified in offense at the kind of cultural appropriation that the Messianic movement is part of. So in short, while the original form of Christianity was almost certainly Jewish, that original form is almost certainly extinct, probably irretrievably so, and no modern form of Christianity is a Jewish religion. But there still, no doubt, exist Christians who are ethnoculturally Jewish. And even though Christianity is not one of them, there are indeed multiple religions that have valid claim to be seen as Jewish religion. But even if someone does not follow any of them, Jewish identity is not limited to religion. Jewish ethnicity and culture are also real things and validly a source of Jewish identity. And it is important to not just understand this, but also to respect this reality. I would say that those who try to deny the validity of ethnicity as a basis of Jewish identity generally fall into three categories. These categories may not include all of them, but probably include most of them. The first are anti-Semitic racists who want to obscure the fact that their anti-Semitism constitutes a form of racism. While I may have more to say on them in the future, I will not be saying much more about them in this presentation. Next are adherents of traditional Jewish religion, usually one branch or another of Rabbinic Judaism, who do so in order to proselytize. That's right, proselytize Jews who do not buy into their religion. You have probably heard some people proudly boast of how Jews do not proselytize, but that is bullshit. They merely do not proselytize non-Jews. Now, it is true, not all adherents of traditional Jewish religion proselytize, but some do. And though they do not target non-Jews, they do target people of Jewish ethnicity, and often they use tactics that would make the typical Christian proselytizer blush in shame. And some of the tactics that they use are very double-facedly hypocritical. They attempt to invalidate non-religious bases of Jewish identity while simultaneously relying on them. I mean, imagine going to someone and telling them that they do not know what it is to be a Jew because, say, for example, they do not observe the traditional Sabbath. Why should the person they target care if they are deemed not to know what it is to be a Jew? Truth is, the only way it would matter to them is if their ethnocultural Jewish identity were not just part of who they are, but an important, cherished part of who they are. They even use the fallacy of equivocation to obscure the fact that they are proselytizing. But here I am calling out that use of fallacy. Fallacy exposed. And as I've already said, their fallacy is equivocation, which is when you switch between two or more definitions of a term within an argument in order to obscure something about how the true course of the reasoning would go. On one hand, they invalidate non-religious bases of Jewish identity, thereby using a definition of Jew that is defined strictly by religion. But when describing who they target to onlookers, they use the proper, more inclusive understanding of the term Jew, thereby trying to bamboozle people into thinking that the only people who they try to get to be a part of their religion are people who are already of their religion. And by this means, they often are able to obscure the fact that they are proselytizing. They are rarely called out for this, so rarely that I was happy when I saw a video by the friendly atheist calling this behavior exactly what it is, proselytization. But at any rate, these are the second major group of people who generally attempt to deny the validity of ethnicity as a basis for Jewish identity. The third major group is those who are not themselves part of either of the first two groups, but who unknowingly are repeating an idea that they have been fed, directly or indirectly, by one or both of those groups. At any rate, telling someone that they are forsaking or foregoing their Jewishness because they do not buy into any of the Jewish religions is not okay. This is regardless of whether they do not follow any religion at all or whether they follow a religion that is not Jewish. No atheist Jew, no Christian Jew, and no Muslim Jew, yes, those exist too, should ever be told that. And there is a special place in hell for you if you tell them that by not following Jewish religion, they are giving victory to Hitler. At least there would be if the afterlife actually existed. It is well known that the goal of the Nazis was not to convert or assimilate the Jews, but to eradicate Jewish ethnicity altogether. So telling a Jew who does not adhere to Jewish religion that they are giving the Nazis what they wanted is not only an abusive tactic of proselytization, but it also is a denial of historical fact of the very same level as claims that the Holocaust never happened in the first place. That's right. If you tell a person of Jewish ethnicity that they are giving victory to Hitler by not following Jewish religion, then you are a Holocaust denier. So if you are thinking of telling someone that, just don't. And my biggest hot take of all here is that this goes for members of any so-called ethno-religious group. Everyone has the right to their ethnic and cultural identity, and nobody has the right to take this part of who they are hostage in the event that they dissent from their tribe on the matter of religion. Period. Yes, with all of these groups, Jews included, by the way, there are serious matters of imperialistic attempts to force assimilation, and that those issues have to be contended with. However, green-lighting the tribe to completely steamroll the basic rights of the individual within that tribe is not the solution. Period. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please make sure that you have clicked the like button and leave your comment in the comments area below. Share this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell. Also, if you are interested in this channel's official Discord server, there is a link in this video's YouTube video description area pointing to a page on my blog that gives more information about it, including the invite link to the Discord server. My blog also provides other subscription options that you can use in addition to subscribing here, just so that you will not be too reliant on YouTube's algorithms to see my future videos. Don't get me wrong, I would very much appreciate you subscribing here as well because it does help my channel out. But if you want additional ways to be sure you catch my videos, my blog has you covered too. So check out those options. And until next time, see ya!